I'm Christine. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm here to chat about 5 historical romance arcs. So there are quite a few historical romance releases that are coming out in the next couple months. So I wanted to kind of get a start on some of the arcs that I have piled up. So I have, I think, one more for January. I have a couple for February, and then I have one for maybe March, maybe April. I can't remember for the last date on that one. So I'm one who absolutely loves getting arcs, which arcs stand for Advanced Readers Copies. So you get these books from sometimes the publishers, authors, indie like marketing teams, things like that. For these ones in particular, I've gotten them all from either the authors that I have read their books in the past, or I've also gotten them from NetGalley, which is through the publishers. So arcs are something that I really enjoy doing and getting. I had only started getting arcs in, I believe, the very beginning, like January of 2021. So I've been doing them for going on 2 years now. So I just love getting arcs, especially for historical romances. I like to jump into them. Some of them I'm like super excited for. They're the next in a series or something like that. So getting them months in advance is just something so fun to me. I also just like being one of the first people, or like the first wave of people, of course, who get arcs and who are reading the book before maybe the hype is out there or before other people are talking about it, and so I can kind of form my own opinions. It's usually when the publishers or the authors or the marketing team or whoever are sending you the arcs, it is usually for you to then, read the book, write a review, maybe hype it up, talk about it, spread the word about it, all the things like that before the publishing date. So for me, I don't mind doing that. I always write reviews for every single book that I read anyways. I started doing that in 2020, just started writing reviews for every single book. As soon as I finish it, I write it, I post it on Goodreads, and it's kind of to help my own memory as well, because I read, hundreds and hundreds of books a year. And so that kind of like will jog my memory about like, oh yeah, like that happened in that book. Like I totally go back and read my own reviews sometimes to remember certain details and key elements of books. So for me personally, like since I'm already writing the reviews for these books that I'd be reading anyways, like the arcs, I will totally grab them and write the reviews up for them. So I have 5 historical romance arcs that I'm hoping to read for this. So here's a rundown of the books that I plan to read for this video. So first up is One Duke Down by Anna Bennett. This is the second book in her Rogues to Lovers series, and this one is out on January 24th. Next up is Curled Up with an Earl by Amy Rose Bennett, and this is the second book in her Byronic Book Club series, and this one comes out on February 7th. Then I plan to read The Counterfeit Scoundrel by Lorraine Heath. This is the first book in her new Chessman series. This one comes out on February 21st. Lorraine was super sweet and actually sent me a signed ARC copy, and so I'm so excited to have this as my physical read. This is kind of a spin-off from her Once Upon a Dukedom series, as we have already met the characters that we're going to follow in this series in that one. So yeah, I'm excited to check this new series out. Next up is The Portrait of a Duchess by Scarlett Peckham. This is the second book in her Society of Sirens series. This one comes out on March 7th. So this one is actually a follow-up to The Rakess, which I am obsessed with this cover so much. This book was actually one of my favorite reads back in 2020. I was absolutely obsessed with it. It's definitely a very moody, broody, kind of darker themes and things going on, but it's just such a beautiful book if you're in the mood for that. And the last one I have for this video is A Rogue's Rules for Seduction by Ava Lee. This one is the third book in her Last Chance Scoundrel series, and it comes out on April 25th. This one I have been waiting for Dom's story since book 1, so I'm so excited to get to it. The premise of this series is that the 3 heroes, they've all been kind of given an ultimatum by their family, which is to marry within 1 year or they risk getting cut off. So those are the 5 books that I plan to read for this video. Definitely follow along and I will be checking in later. So I totally had planned to start this as a vlog situation, like updating as I go and reading the books and filling you in. But of course, I am the absolute worst at vlogging. Like nothing I do is interesting. And then when I do read the books, I'm like so invested in the book that sometimes I don't stop to check in, or like not sometimes, like I didn't check in at all for 2 of these books I've already finished. So I will share my thoughts on those, but I'm hoping to do better for the next books. The first arc was One Duke Down by Anna Bennett. This comes out on January 24th. This is the second book in her Rogues to Lovers series. The first book was actually Girls Before Earls, and I adored this one. I read it, I think, last year at the very beginning of the year and absolutely loved it. I thought it was so cute and charming. I gave this one 5 stars. Basically, the series is set in like a seaside town, so it is outside of society and outside of London, which I thought was super fun and just like refreshing. This one is really cute. The heroine is actually like a headmistress at a school for girls, and the hero actually, he is the uncle of a niece, and he ends up bringing his niece to the school, and so that is how him and the heroine meet. So it is their story. This one was so cute and adorable, so I was really looking forward to the second book, which is One Duke Down. One Duke Down is out on January 24th. I knew absolutely nothing about this book except for the fact that I loved the first book in the series. I really enjoyed the author's writing, and I'm just obsessed with like the super cute and charming like cover, the couple smiling, her orange gown, like the bright, vibrant colors. Like I just love it so much. So this book, I actually ended up giving it 3 stars. It sadly didn't live up to my expectations or how high I had liked the first book in the series, but this one is definitely a cute and charming, low angst historical romance if you're in the mood for that. So in this one, we follow Poppy, which she is a fisherman's daughter who lives in this seaside town, and her father has kind of gotten ill and her brother has left home, and so now it is up to Poppy to kind of save the family's business. So this means that every morning Poppy is out there, she's out in her boat, and she's ready to set her fishing nets. So one morning she is out doing that, she's casting out her fishing nets, and then when she pulls in her nets, she actually finds a man who is caught up in her nets. So the beginning was super fun. I love this like little meet cute moment of him being wrapped up in her net. At first he is unconscious, but then he wakes up, he has a head wound, and he's telling Poppy that he's a duke, which of course she doesn't believe him at first. She's like, no way, like you're totally like a washed up pirate. But we do find out that the hero, Keen, he is a duke, and he was actually escaping London and like his kind of life there, and went to this seaside town when he actually ended up getting attacked by some people outside of a bar and was left for dead at the cove. Keen wants Poppy's help. He's like, can you help me out? Like, hide me out so that I can kind of find out who was trying to attack me, like who was trying to kill me. Like, I want to find out what was going on. So that leads to, of course, Keen and Poppy spending lots of time together. She stashes him in like her little hideaway and brings him food and blankets and all of that, which we do see these two end up taking a trip into London at one point as well. They attend a masquerade ball together, which was fun. We do see a lot of the heroine from book 1 because she is Poppy's best friend, and so they are hanging out a lot together in the town. Around the middle of the story, though, this one started to drag for me. It just felt a little too stagnant, like it was just a little too low angst for me for the romance and the plot of the story. The romance was just like super easy though, and low angst and chill. If that's what you're in the mood for, this definitely delivers on that. And really the main plot of the story is Keen trying to figure out who had it out for him and who was trying to kill him. That's why I settled on 3 stars for this one. Like I mentioned, I love the like seaside setting. I really enjoy the author's writing. While this one didn't work perfectly for me, like it was still a decent book that I would definitely recommend if you're in the mood for low angst. This one is out on January 24th. So the next book that I already read is Curled Up with an Earl by Amy Rose Bennett, and this one is out on February 7th. So again, this is another sequel to a book that I really enjoyed last year. So the first book is Up All Night with a Good Duke. I loved this one last year. I thought it was such a fun time. I really enjoyed the tropes in this one. Basically in this one, the heroine is a finishing school teacher by day and a gothic romance writer by night. And then the hero is a widowed single father duke who needs to marry again and then also needs help with his teenage daughter. So I really enjoyed this one. I loved the banter and the chemistry and just couldn't get enough of this couple and their story. So again, I was going in with that high expectations of enjoying the first book, and so Curled Up with an Earl I was really looking forward to. And again, for this one, I ended up giving it 3 stars. So in this one, we follow the heroine Lucy, and she lives with her father, who's like a very famous botanist. And the story kicks off with Lucy on her way home, and she ends up getting stuck like with her carriage and her horse situation. So along comes the hero Will to help her, and so he helps her get unstuck. And so he's like, oh, I can actually take the horse from here. Like I'm actually the new groom and coachman at your father's house. So Lucy actually takes a liking to Will right from the start. She feels like this connection with him, and he feels it with her as well. But then, of course, we find out that Will is actually a spy. He is an agent for the crown and an undercover Earl who is posed to work at Lucy's house and try to get a little bit of info on her father, who is a prime suspect in some murders. So Will is on this hunt for this ruthless killer, and then Lucy's father ends up becoming the prime suspect because he is a botanical poisons expert. So Will is undercover at the house, Lucy and nobody knows, and he's trying to get like the truth and find out what actually happened. So around the same time, Lucy's father is actually trying to marry her off or betroth her off to this awful man that she doesn't want to get married to. And so Lucy decides she needs to go find her brother because her brother has left home and he's living in St. Giles. And she's like, if my brother was here, like he would be standing up for me and he wouldn't let this marriage go through. So she actually goes to Will and asks him to help her. And she's like, hey, can you like accompany me, be my escort, like come with me to the St. Giles rookery? Like I need to find my brother. So Lucy and Will form this like really easy friendship and connection right from the start, and they start to help one another out. He does escort her to the St. Giles rookeries, and he kind of acts as her bodyguard in that situation. About halfway into the story is when Lucy finds out Will's actual identity. Lucy, I feel like we didn't really get to know as well as we do with Will. So Will, we actually learn about his backstory. He has a very like complicated relationship with his family. He is a Scottish Earl, so he has like that Scots brogue. And I really enjoyed how he just wants to protect Lucy. So this book, I wasn't as invested in it as I was in the first book in the series. The tropes in that one just worked really, really well for me. And I know I've mentioned it multiple times here before that like spy and espionage stories don't really work for me all the time. So this is definitely a me thing for my rating and enjoyment of this book. I know that the first book in the series just really worked for me because the tropes in that one was just like everything that I love. But again, I really enjoy this author's writing and I'm excited for more in her series in the future. But this one is out on February 7th. So the next book that I just started last night is The Counterfeit, Scoundrel by Lorraine Heath. This is the first book in her new Chessmen series, which this series is actually like a spin-off, or we have met the characters for this series in her previous series, which was the Once Upon a Dukedom series. Like I mentioned, I started this one last night and I think I got about 100 pages in, which yeah, I'm at page 99, which is chapter 8. So the Chessmen is a group of 4 friends who all met during their Oxford days, and they kind of became nicknamed the Chessmen because of the way that they strategize with like their investments and things like that. So we have King, Bishop, Knight, and Rook. King has actually already had his book. He is the Duke of Kingsland, and his book was The Duchess Hunt, which is the second book in the Once Upon a Dukedom series, and that's kind of when we met him and these friends, the Chessmen. This book is actually Bishop's story. So this book, it kind of drops us right into the story. We start following Daisy, the heroine, and she is already working in the hero Bishop's house as a maid. And so we actually find out that she was born into society. She's like an aristocrat's daughter, but she has always yearned for like adventure and sleuthing. And so she's kind of like an amateur private detective type setup. So she ended up getting hired by a man to kind of find out about his wife's infidelity and cheating. And so she's posed in the hero's house because he is the supposed lover of the jilted man's wife. So like I mentioned, we're just dropped right in. Daisy's already working in Bishop's house and kind of acting as his maid, but also like sneaking about in his office, going through his desk, like going through his calendar and journals to figure out if he really is the lover of this cheating wife. So we actually end up learning really early on, like in the first POV from Bishop, that he's actually like helping these women get out of sticky situations or unsuitable matches. So he's kind of allowing himself to be a scapegoat for their cheating or affairs, and so he makes it look like he's having affairs with these women to help them get out of their marriages. So we know that from Bishop's POV, but of course from Daisy's, she's still kind of trying to figure out what he's up to. But she's starting to get a little suspicious because like when she goes up there and catches him with one of the women, like they're playing cards, and she's like, if this was like an affair, like would you guys be playing cards right now, or would you be like, you know, in the bed or something like that? So she's definitely onto him, and she's also very interested in him and like can't stop looking at him. And then he kind of feels the same towards her as well. Like they just have this connection right away from the start. But he's already actually very suspicious of Daisy right now too, because some of the stories that she had told him about like, you know, her previous work and things like that aren't adding up to what some of the household servants are telling him about her previous work as well. So she's told like multiple people different stories. And so he's like, this isn't adding up. Like, could she be here to maybe check up on me? Like, did a jilted husband hire her? So he's already like onto her. And so it's kind of this like little cat and mouse situation they have going on. So that is where I am at right now. So far, it is a fun time. I don't think it's going to be a new favorite. Like I can always kind of feel or get the energy from when you're reading a book. Like you can tell, like, is this going to be a 5-star? Like, is this going to be a 4-star? So right now it's kind of like 3.5, 4 stars. We will see, because I still have quite a ways to go. And of course, you know, the book can definitely change my views as I go on, which of course I love Lorraine Heath around here. She's one of my all-time favorites. She's my absolute favorite historical romance author. I have read all but I think maybe 4 or 5 of her books now, which she has an impressive backlist and they're all really amazing. So I always have a fun time with them. Because it is Lorraine Heath and all of her series kind of takes place in the same world and universe, we see a ton of the same familiar faces and familiar places over and over again. So we've already seen quite a few instances of that in this one. Like I mentioned, the hero in this one, Bishop, one of his friends is King, who of course had a book in the Once Upon a Dukedom series. We also see the Twin Dragons Club, which was the former daughter's drawing room, which was of course featured in her Scoundrels of St. James series and her Scandalous Gentlemen of St. James, which is a spin-off from that series. And so we also see another club from her universe, which is the Fair and the Spare, which one of the heroes from the Once Upon a Dukedom series, he had actually created that club. It was just a lot of fun to see all of these like same places and faces over and over again in her books. It kind of just makes you feel like all that comfort and like a place that you actually know as well, just with how much the characters go to them. So I can't wait to read more of this one, and I will check in later about it. So now one of the husbands for the women that the hero was helping, that husband ends up showing up murdered, and the hero was was the last one to have been seen with him because he punched him in public. The hero is accused of murdering him, and so he's like a suspect in the case. So now he's working with the heroine to kind of figure out how they can prove that it wasn't him without telling people that he was with her that night at a club or like brothel situation, and also that he wasn't with this other couple that he was helping like get back together. So that is what's happening right now, and it is super intriguing. So I am just sitting here with my snack. I have some tomato slices and some mozzarella cheese. Later today, I'm going to be doing the reading sprints on Melissa from Book Bar's channel, so I will check in later. So during the second one, I did finish the Lorraine Heath arc. Really enjoyed it. The second half of it definitely picked up for me, and I had a great time. So I think I'm going to end up giving it 4 stars, maybe 4.5. Like, I loved the epilogue. I loved the moments with the hero and the heroine. Like, it was just so good. The heroine's relationship with her aunt was fun to see as well. And it was just a great time. Like, I really liked seeing the hero and heroine have to work together to try to kind of prove his innocence in this murder. And then just all of their moments together. Like, it was so beautiful. Loved his declarations for her. Like, just a great time, and reminds me why I love Lorraine Heath so much. So yeah, super fun start to the series. And it gave it 4 stars, and it's out on February 21st. So next, I'm probably going to be picking up The Portrait of a Duchess by Scarlett Peckham, which is the second book in her Society of Sirens series, which comes out in March, but that's the next one I'm going to read, and so I will give updates once I get into that one. Some book mail today. So I had pre-ordered the 8th book in the Wayward Children series. So this is by Shauna McGuire, and this one is Lost in the Moment and Found. Obsessed with this series. It is like portal fantasy, found family. There is a lot of LGBTQ plus rep, just kind of finding yourself and discovering who you really are. Just love the series so much. It's one of my all-time favorites. So I'm so excited to have this 8th book, and I'm going to get to this one soon. I also grabbed Jennifer Hartman's new book and her new duet. So this is An Optimist's Guide to Heartbreak. Obsessed with this cover. I love the yellow and pink together. So pretty. I saw that Jennifer has said that the paperbacks for the series went live earlier than the release date. So I did get this a few days early. So excited to read this soon. I know that this is the first book in a duet, and that this one does end on a cliffhanger, but like, I'm probably going to jump into it because I know the second book in the series comes out, I think, at the very end of the month. All right, so I just have a quick moment to check in. My husband went to go grab us pizza for tonight, and so I am doing the vegetarian pizza, which I love. The more veggies on a pizza, like, the better for me. I love it. But I have been reading The Portrait of Duchess, the book by Scarlett Peckham, and so far it's okay. It's definitely different than the first book in the series. The first one was very like moody, broody, kind of dark. This one has a kind of different take, and so basically the 4 friends are part of that Society of Sirens, and they're all kind of very like feminist and progressive, and they have all of these thoughts for, you know, women's rights and women's equality. And so basically the 4 friends, they're wanting to open up a school for women. And in the first book, they got money from the heroine in that book. Like, she did a book, she wrote a book, she sold her book. So they used the money from that to purchase land for their future school. And so now they're in need of money again, because like her money only paid for the land. Like, now they have to build it and, you know, all the construction. So they need money again. And so the heroine of this book, she's a painter, and she decides she wants to do like an exhibit of some paintings and earn money that way. Which around the same time, the hero shows up in her life, and we find out that this is kind of second chance because they're actually married, which nobody knew believe she was married, and they've been married for like 20 years, but they haven't seen one another since then. So basically the heroine was taken in by her uncle. He was her guardian, and he was a duke, and like he raised her, and then when she was about to turn 18, he was like ready to marry her off to somebody. So the heroine didn't want to lose her freedom, and so at the time, which we're seeing like in flashbacks, she went to the hero who worked as like a horseman and like breeder on her uncle's property. And so she went to him with the idea for them to marry, just like to get married, so that if her uncle ever tried to marry her off to somebody, like she was already married. There is age gap in this one as well. The heroine was like 18 when she came to the hero with this idea. I want to say he's at least like 15, 20 years older than her. So yeah, they got married, which we see in flashbacks, and then they kind of went their separate ways, or like something did drive them apart. We just haven't seen it happen yet through the flashbacks. But in present day, now the hero has become the duke. He inherited from the heroine's uncle because he was like a ninth cousin, so many times removed, like something like that. And so all of these deaths had occurred where he did inherit the dukedom. And the hero has his own like progressive thoughts as well. So the hero and the heroine, they kind of team up because he's like, well, hey, I want you to come and like, show people you're my wife and things like that, because for her to inherit money left to her from her uncle, she had to have been married at the time of his death and of his will. And so she is married to the hero, and so he shows up and was like, well, hey, I can help you get this inheritance back, so you need to come to the ducal estate with me. We're gonna pretend to be, well, not pretend because they are married, but like we're gonna show people that we're married, and you're gonna be my duchess and like all these things like that. And so she's like, well, if I come, then I also want to use the estate and host this like art exhibit that I'm gonna be having. Pretty much she has painted like these scandalous paintings of different people like in her life and things like that. And so she wants to hold that little thing and shock people kind of at the same time that they are telling everybody that they are married. That's where we are at so far. This one is definitely more complicated than the first book in the series, or maybe just like seems more complicated. Like there's more going on with this storyline. In this one, the hero is bisexual, and so we actually get to meet his male lover that lives on the property and kind of works at the ducal estate as well. So I'm curious where that's going to go, because so far the hero and the heroine just had a scene that they did with his lover. So there was very much like an MMF situation going on. So I'm curious what's going to happen next, because like the lover guy, he lives on the property, he works there. But like I'm assuming it's just going to be the hero and the heroine at the end. So I'm curious what's going to happen to his lover. Like I feel kind of bad for him if he's going to be like shunned out while they just get together. So we will see how this goes for everybody involved. Okay, so hopefully this stays put. I have my phone balanced against my water bottle right now, but I just wanted to check in quickly. I'm just in bed and reading. So I have just finished the Portrait of a Duchess. And I think I talked about in the previous clip how I was just feeling kind of okay about this one. Like it wasn't my favorite. And that's definitely how I felt at the end as well. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So like I had mentioned, this one is told through flashbacks. And so we see the couple 20 years before, and then we see them in present day as well. And literally, like I could not tell a difference between the 2 time frames. The couples didn't really show any character growth, like at all. Both time frames just read the same to me. They had the same issues. They had the same things going on. And so it was kind of confusing why there was even that 20-year gap, since they felt exactly the same. So the heroine in this one, she was definitely the one who didn't want to be married, didn't want to be tied down. She wanted that freedom and independence that she knew or thought she could have, being on her own, where the hero was the one who kind of wanted to make their marriage work. He was the one, like, oh, she loves me now. Like I can declare my love for her publicly, kiss her in public, things like that at the house party. And she would like, freak out and shut down and like not want anything to do with that. But at the same time, like her feelings were growing for him as well. And she's falling in love too. So like it was a little bit of internal battle for her. So the story did feel kind of simplistic, like it's set at a house gathering or like a house party where there's lots of like their friends there and guests and lots of party games and things like that going on. So it was more the couple's like interactions and things like that, and conversations about wanting to have all of these like, progressive changes and things like that. So a lot of talk without action, it felt like in this one. It also just came off a little bit too try-hardy, like the characters and their thoughts and all of those kind of interactions like just didn't really feel sincere. It just felt like the author threw too much at it, just very much like that, we want to go like over the top and prove that we are going against all the society norms and things like that. Like I had mentioned as well, the couple has a scene or like a little passionate time with his male lover. And so I was curious how that was going to play out, because they've both had lovers in the past and like they're very open about their relationship and things like that. And so I was curious how this was going to end, because it's like she doesn't want a, traditional, so to speak, marriage. Like how is this going to play out? Are they going to get divorced? Like what's going to happen? It does have an HEA, but it's definitely their definition of an HEA. So I could definitely see some people having issues with the way that the couple want to have their HEA in the end. For me, I didn't mind it. Like, I could totally see from their characters, like, this is where we were gonna go. So I did think that was interesting. But yeah, like, it wasn't my favorite by the author. I do love her writing overall. I do enjoy the characters that we get to see in this whole friend group. So of course I will read the next books in her series as well. This one just wasn't a hit for me, and so that's why I ended up giving it 3 stars. So I think I only have 1 book left for this vlog, which the next one, let's see here. It is the Ava Lee, A Rogue's Rules for Seduction, which I'm excited for this one. This is the 3rd book in her Last Chance at Scoundrel series. This is going to be Dom's book, which I've been looking forward to since book 1. So basically in this series, we are following 3 heroes, like 3 heroes of each book. And at the very beginning of book 1, Dom jilted his bride-to-be at the altar, left her there. His bride-to-be's 2 brothers helped him out. They were his best friends. And so all 3 of them end up getting in trouble from their families afterwards because, you know, he left his bride-to-be at the altar and her brothers helped him out. So their fathers and families kind of give all 3 guys like an ultimatum. You all need to find respectable wives, settle down, or you risk getting cut off financially from us. And so that's how the series has shown all 3 of the heroes finding wives. But this one is Dom's story, and so it's going to be second chance with the bride he left at the altar in book 1. So I am so excited to jump into this book. And this one comes out on April 25th, and I will check in later. So I've been reading A Rogue's Rules to Seduction by Ava Lee, really enjoying it so far. Like I mentioned in the previous clip, this one is second chance because it's between the hero and the heroine, and the hero in the first book in the series, he jilted, like left the bride to be at the altar, which is the heroine. So now it's been over a year since it was supposed to be their wedding. After that happened, the heroine had like taken off to the continent for a year, you know, to get away the shame, the embarrassment, and the hurt and all of that. So now they're both back, and it starts off with the hero getting invited to this house party that's taking place on this isolated Scottish isle. So he gets invited by his 2 best friends, which actually they are both the brothers of the heroine, and one of them is actually married to the hero's sister as well, so they're all kind of related now. And so they're all invited to the party, and now when he gets there, the heroine is already there too, so they realize that their family and friends have been kind of trying to set them up again. So yeah, I'm loving the tension so far and the angst between that, you know, they were in the past situation. It's a lot of fun. This one's probably going to be my favorite in the series. I'm really loving it. Like I said, we've been waiting for this one since book 1. So second chance, I love second chance. Like, I'm so excited. So we were just doing chores today and hanging out. Here are some of my bookshelves. I was organizing them earlier. Kind of a different glance at them from this angle. And then over here we have, after the window of course, just put my new Bridgerton books up here, and then I have my little plant, just loving the light over here. So I'm just going to get ready for the day. Earlier I did some chores around the house, and then now my mom and I are going to go to a used bookstore, check that out, probably have dinner together as well. So I will probably show some footage of book shopping and all of that. So yeah, I will check in later with some book updates. We're gonna go to was closed. So I had gone looking for some historical romances, specifically some of the new picks that Historical Hellions Book Club picked for their like spring book club picks. So I was trying to find those. Unfortunately, didn't find them there, which they're probably at the other shop I was going to go to because that one usually has some older historicals. So I will go there again another day when the lady is open. But I did find some indie romances there, which is super exciting. So whenever I see those at used bookstores, I grab them. One of which was the Go Deep by Rilsey Adams, which is one of my favorites. I actually just recommended it today to somebody, so that was super funny. Which that one is a contemporary romance, friends to lovers. It's a novella. The heroine is like an erotic writer and she needs some inspiration. So she asks her best friend friend to help her out. So it is 8 Friends to Lovers. Love that book so much. And the other one I found was a Juliet Cross, one of her series I haven't read. I think it was called Black Lily or something like that. I believe it's vampires, but it was signed as well. So that was super fun. So I grabbed that as well. And so yeah, so we ended up grabbing an early dinner after that. And then now I am home. And so I was reading. I am 50% into the Ava Lee now. And I am just obsessed. Like, I'm loving the tension between this couple because of that like angst and tension of him leaving her at the altar in the past. And now they're like together at that house party. And like, ugh, just like every scene with them, like I'm obsessed. I definitely think this is going to be my favorite in the series. I am just loving it so much. We're learning that both Dom and Willa kind of didn't share a lot with each other in the past. So they're kind of learning about one another, and they have like secrets or just like things from their past that they never really shared with one another because they were never like fully comfortable with one another in the past or willing to like open up about some of their insecurities and things like that. I'm sure we're going to be getting them opening up and all of that as the story goes on. And so they are at that house party as well with their family and friends. And so we're getting lots of like the party games and excursions out and about with the other house guests, which is fun. Which is funny because the previous book that I read, the Scarlet Peckham, that was also set at like a house party, and that one I didn't love as much, but then I'm just enjoying their banter and the tension between them, like all of their scenes just going so well. Like they will start kind of comfortable and joking around and having a good time with one another, and then they kind of realize, like, wait a minute, you know, like they left me in the past or she hurt me in the past, and so then they end up going their separate ways. So yeah, I'm just obsessed, 50% in, and can't wait to read some more. All right, I am here to check in one last time. So I ended up finishing the Ava Lee book last night. I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely loved it so much. This was just perfection. Like the angst and the tension between the couple, that second chance, like I was just here for it. This one, like I mentioned, I'd been looking forward to it from the very first book. So I definitely went in with some high expectations, but it like blew all of those out of the water. I just had a great time with it, the entire thing. Like I loved it so much, and I'm already like thinking of some quotes I highlighted and like wanting to reread it. Like it was just a fun time. I loved seeing the couple realize how they were not in the right place when they were going to get married the previous year, that they definitely needed that time apart and that time to kind of learn themselves and learn one another as well. The hero definitely had some things from his past, like he was born a commoner, and so he went through a rougher kind of life than the heroine was, which she is born an Earl's daughter. She's very much like the aristocratic princess, which he was kind of in society, but always felt like he didn't belong. And they just both had a lot to work through. I just loved it so much, like so many fun scenes between them. There's a couple scenes in here that stood out, one of which is when they are acting out this like Greek play for the house party, and it leads to some tension building up and some sexual tension between the couple, and so they end up taking off from the scene once it ends, which was so much fun. Also because of the weather as well, they end up getting trapped into a little cabin together, so there was tons of that fun like close proximity happening. It was just a great time. The epilogue was amazing because it definitely tied up the entire series. We got to check in with all of the couples and see them all together. It was just a great time, which actually quite a few Ava Lee books, the last book in the series, always seems to be my favorite. So I don't know if it's just that like build up or me waiting to get to that couple, but yeah, that's how a few of her series have gone for me. So I'm so glad I ended this on a 5-star read. This book comes out on April 25th, so it's definitely out in a while, but I would definitely pre-order it if you haven't. So hopefully you enjoyed this vlog of me checking in. They're very much like in the moment thoughts instead of like a clean and polished up review of the book. So hopefully you can make sense of my ramblings and thoughts about the books as I read. But if you do want to see more of my thoughts and my full written out reviews for any of these books, I have reviewed all of them, and you can get to that on my Goodreads, which is linked in the description of all of my videos. So while some of these reads were kind of mediocre for me, and I think I gave 3 stars, but I did have the Lorraine Heath was a 4.5 star, and the start of a new series from her that I'm super excited for. And then of course ending with the Ava Lee, which I gave 5 stars to. So there was definitely some wins in here. Nothing was terrible, like some I just didn't connect with as well, which I also thought it was interesting that all 5 of these authors that I read from, I have given all of them 5 stars in the past. So it was interesting to see where each of their books fall for me. So let me know in the comments if you want to see any of these like ARC reading vlog situations again. Like I said, I had a lot of fun doing it. It was fun to check in as I was reading the books and kind of give you my thoughts as I went and like how things were going. So it was a fun little progression of my reading experience. Those were all the historical romance arcs that I currently had out. So maybe when I get a few more, I will do another one. Or I also have a couple contemporary romances as well that I could do a vlog for that, because I know I have the new Emily Henry, which is Happy Place, and then I also have the new Catherine Center book, which is Hello Stranger. So let me know if you want to see any more ARC vlogs, or if you want to see any other type of vlogs from me as well. It was super fun to do. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you plan to pick any of these up when they come out, or maybe if you've already read the ARCs as well. I'd love to know. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.